Welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 734. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm
Exactly
harmless.
what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we will cover some Formula One news because that's what we do. But before covering any of that Formula One news, I have to introduce my co-host tonight, which of course means... That's right. I gotta go all the way to the right coast of America, nestled in our nation's capital, where she plies her skills as a master statistician, and she's cheering on those wizards. That's what she does for a living. You know her, you love her. It's the redoubtable
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
You know, I'm hanging in there, man. I'm, yeah, it was a long week last week. A lot of driving, crummy hotel room pillows, and now I'm paying for it. You know, I kind of came home like this, with my head. And so, for those of you watching on YouTube, if I sit here and rub my shoulder and neck all evening, you'll know why I'm doing that. I'm not a freak. It's just, it's just stuff that ibuprofen isn't working.
Not for that reason.
Yeah, not for that reason. For other reasons, of course.
Maybe, right? But
of course.
Yeah, no, right? Like getting old sucks. I was just talking about how like on the inside I still feel 20. Like I don't it's very weird that I've at work suddenly become that person that's gone, well, 10 years ago when we tried this. Like when did I become that person? Like that everything we've tried that. Don't you remember 7 years ago when we tried the same thing and it didn't work? Why are we trying it again? I always say, I don't know when it happened. I remember being the kid at the back of the school bus watching the adults in the cars. And now I'm the adult in the car watching the kids in the school bus. And I don't know when that happened.
Yeah, it was like that.
It was like that. So,
yeah,
I feel you. But yeah, it's, and it's always like you want to believe that, that was like an injury you received doing something cool. Like I was riding a Pegasus and I fell off or something, right? Like I was attacked by a mountain lion and I fought it off with my bare hands. But no, it's like I slept on a pillow wrong. It sucks.
Right. Oh, it's like my, my arm. You can't see that, but I got a big scar there. But it's like my arm in surgery. And it's like, I went in and I was lifting the dog back over a chain link fence and tore that tendon off. And, that's just not a cool story, man. You got to come up with, I was doing the half pipe, showing these young kids how to do it. And, I don't have good stories like that.
I'm trying out for the Olympic skeleton team.
Yeah.
Pulling Excalibur out of the stone. I don't, what I mean? There's
exactly.
way cooler punching dolphins. I mean, we got lots of stories, but it's always just something stupid. Like I bent over to clean the refrigerator and now I can't stand up again.
I like to pull an Excalibur out of the stone. I know, not rock. Usfas method. Yes. There you go. Anybody gets that reference from an old movie, I'll be amazed. All right, Grace. Enough old movie references. Hey, I got yelled at again.
Stop yelling at Todd.
For complaining about getting yelled at.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just... Hey, for clarification, it happens. It comes with the territory. It's okay. But here's the thing, just for reference. I don't want to confuse, if anyone's new to the podcast or the website, the rule that has been standing since 2005 is decorum and civility, no personal attacks. And I've said that practically on every podcast for 700 and some episodes. So I'm all for feedback. Feedback's great. And happy to have that feedback, and that's wonderful. That's great. But when people come into the website and start personally attacking other people for their comments and stuff, that's just not cool, man.
It's not okay.
So anyway, so there you have it. I got that going, and I was, I got got roughed up over that, so I deserve it.
Oh no, you don't.
Yeah. Oh no, I do. Damn it. Oh, it's fine. The other thing that was cool was some really good comments on the website this week. And I enjoyed those. And some good mailbag, which is always good. I'm saving Simon. Simon's, I got your mailbag, but I'm saving it because you wanted Paul. You wanted Paul's input, so I'm going to save that to next week.
Right.
And, you didn't want mine or Grace's. Understandably so, okay? But
right.
So I didn't want you to, Simon, to think that I didn't catch your mailbag. I did. I will get to that, I promise. next week. So anyway, but this week's mailbag, yes, sirree, Andrew Page, I'm looking at you. I have yours. So we'll get into the news, should we? So Grace,
Todd,
kind of sad.
yeah.
Yeah, kind of sad. Sad news this past week. Former FIA president Max Mosley passed away.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how he would be remembered. And it's been interesting reading the press, the teams, former colleagues of his. It's been really interesting reading the comments about Max.
Okay.
As you can imagine, Max was a galvanizing figure in motorsport.
Yeah, for sure.
And not just because of who his father was, who was Oswald Mosley.
Yeah, him himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Max spent, a lifetime sort of living in the penumbra of his father and, trying to explain that out. And then he was in, more recently, some people had dredged up some stuff and went after him again about that. But, he was often said to be the velvet glove of Bernie Ecclestone's iron fist, and mostly because he was a barrister, or in the UK, a barrister, here in the States, it'd be called a lawyer. And he operated very shrewdly, and he did in the world of F1. He became the FIA president. Now, the thing about Max is, it's all Spankgate, right? And the sex scandal that all went down, which was less than savory.
Let's never talk about that again.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sure he didn't want to either. And then that led to a very lengthy court battle over the media and doing pieces like that, which was pretty much a hit piece on Max. It was interesting about Max. I read his biography, his autobiography.
Oh.
It was a really interesting read. And would I recommend it? Yes, of course I would. And something sort of tells me, had the sex scandal not happened and his lawsuit against the media not happened, I think Max would have been remembered in a very different light. But you've got the sex scandal, which pretty much ended his career, the court battle, which pretty much set him at complete odds with the media, or some, not all, but some of the media. You had the history and past of his family and those kind of things. And his achievements towards safety in motorsport and road car safety was very significant. And I mainly took Max during the time he was serving as FIA president. I mainly took Max kind of at just face value during his tenure.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And with the assistance of his autobiography in hindsight, now when you stand back and you look at the totality of Max's career, from a young man to a lawyer, his family, his involvement in March racing, his with the FICA photo war, the FIA, the presidency, the McLaren Spygate, handing out that big penalty, the sex scandal, the media, all that stuff. His stepping down as the president. When you take a look back, and you can connect all those dots and say, he was a controversial character, a galvanizing character. But I remember back in the 90s and early 2000s, just kind of taking Max at face value. I would either agree or disagree with a judgment that he made, or a regulation or a change, when he ushered in the cost caps and wanted to get a $70 million team, or $50 million, or whatever it was. He brought in the 3 new teams, which went on life support and eventually died. But I never really kind of looked at it in total, his career. His adjudication of that $100 million fine to McLaren over Spygate was massive.
Huge.
And his dislike of Ron Dennis, and vice versa, was tangible.
Yeah.
It was just tangible. Leaving some folks out there to concoct a controversy story suggesting that Ron Dennis set him up with this sex scandal, which I don't believe, but you know how people talk. Regardless, Max did more for the sport than most. Okay. And when you compare his actions to those of his successor, Jean Todt, Max was a lot more vocal in that role and much more in the public view than Jean Todt has ever been, really. And I remember when Jean did his first tenure as the FI president, there's many times you and I were saying, where is Jean in this issue? He's just like not there. Max would have been all over that, Right. And it was a real change in that leadership dynamic from Max. And I'd always been used to Max having a very hands-on approach in, regulation development, team altercations between teams and adjudication and the Motorsport Council. And, he was a very litigious mind in that sense. Yeah. Whereas Jean Todt, it's just, it hasn't been that way at all. It's just kind of like that,
He's doing much more the not F1 part of his job.
Yeah, right.
So I think that is where Jean Todt is focusing, right, on the road regulations, road safety, he's just not as involved in Formula One. And I wonder too how much that is related to, Jean Todt isn't a lawyer, right?
Right.
He's a racing guy. I mean, not that Max Mosley was involved with March. He did have, place in motorsports, but not the same way that Jean Todt did. I mean, that's really all Jean Todt has done. So, even
and Jean,
Ferrari.
And Jean is involved in a lot of. He's on the boards of many organizations. Right. He's got the brain and spinal injury, group that he's doing. There's a lot of other things that command his attention. Whether it's for the UN or whatever it might. But for Max, he really was all in. As the FIA president.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's calling Jean Todt lazy, right? It's just that, his job encounters 10 things and Max really focused on these two and Jean Todt's focusing on, the other ones.
Yeah.
So I think it's just where they're directing their attention. And I mean, I haven't only been watching the sport long enough to have a sample size of 2. So I don't know, in comparison to each other, they run it differently, but I don't know if that's who broke the mold here, if you will. If Max is the outlier, if Jean Todt's the outlier. I mean, I guess we'll find out shortly. I'll have a sample size of 3, but I think it's interesting that a job would have that much play to it, or lateral, like that you would be able to play it so different. Most jobs don't kind of have that kind of a set thing that you're in charge of, and this is what you do. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I always had mixed feelings about Max in the way that he managed the FIA and F1. But to be fair, he was a wickedly bright guy who did a lot for the sport. Yeah. And I know I've read Bernie made the comment that he was a dear friend of Bernie's. And Bernie felt like he let Max down during the sex scandal period, when he kind of should have stood behind Max, but didn't at that time. And I know Bernie regretted that, and I've read that in the press. But in the end, Max was a very cunning character. And one of the things that you and I have talked about in Max's tenure as the FIA president and the regulations, I think Max was so cunning. He left enough ambiguity in the regulations as to allow for his interpretation of the regulations to render judgment when he needed to. There was enough wiggle room that he could interpret the regulations in a way to slow a team down or stop this, or I remember famously with the dual diffuser, right? And there was a couple teams doing it, nobody else was, but the teams that were doing it were the underdogs. So you just kind of let that go, because they're underdogs, and it could, overturn the apple cart and make it an exciting season, which it did because Braun ended up winning. So, yeah, it was all interesting tenure when he was there. And Max also was, you remember you and I have talked in the past too about Max is the kind of guy that would ask for this much knowing.
Right. You were going to
you're going to end up here,
right. Yeah. So I was also thinking, right, in talking about like the relation, how Max and John Todd are different from each other. I also wonder if that's also difference because it was Bernie Ecclestone versus Liberty Media. Right. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily know the inner political workings of how Formula One being run relatively by one person versus a group of people, a conglomerate of people. Right. So I wonder if that also plays it differently because, John Todd's opinion may not be welcomed. Right. Like he may not feel it's his place, or they may not want him in that place. And then, I think that's weak sauce by Bernie, but okay.
Yeah. You make a good point, though. I mean, even when CVC Capital owned him, it was like F1 by committee,
Yeah.
But in the halcyon days, it was basically two guys.
Right.
It was Bernie and Max, and they were heavily involved. Bernie with the commercial side, Max with the regulatory side, and they were making a lot of decisions. I mean, and to be fair, look at what Max did after the death of Senna and all of the safety that he brought in after that to prevent that from happening. So, he did a lot of great things for the sport, regardless of his checkered past.
Or even being polarizing. I mean, even if you just look at the whole of his contribution, right? I think it would be hard to say, oh, he didn't do any good. But I also think that's true of all people. Most people are complicated. All people are complicated, right? Like we really want people to be the good guy or the bad guy, but that's just not how people work. And that people are very capable of both being good people and bad people. And some of us are only good people because we aren't given the opportunity to be bad people, right? So you really can't be super judgy because I'm not in a position that Max Mosley was ever in. So.
And some people, didn't think it was a big deal, and others did, and those are where you draw your boundaries, and that's an individual thing too.
Yeah.
But I think in aggregate, when you look at his contribution to motorsport, what he did for the FIA, how he regulated the sport, how he defended the sport, what he did legally to position the FIA. It's very interesting too, in that reading that autobiography, he talks at length about how the FIA is positioned and has purview over any motorsport in Europe.
Right.
Like there was a discussion in his autobiography about Formula E, and I think, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here. It was something about the teams in Formula One, if they weren't happy with the way that Formula One was going, they would just, remember they were threatening to leave and go start their own series, right?
Ferrari, yes.
Yes, and led by Ferrari, of course. And he was saying that just isn't possible because to go and create a new series would have to be under the FIA's regulations because of the EU law and how he had positioned the FIA within the EU. And it was very intriguing read. So if you haven't read that biography, I certainly would recommend it.
All right.
It's very interesting. So anyway, rest in peace, Max Mosley. And thanks for all you did for motorsport.
Yeah.
Okay, should we get to more positive notes?
Is this a more positive note?
Maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe not. Now that you say that, it may not be.
Nobody's dead, so yes, in that matter, it's
in
more
that
positive.
Sense. Yeah.
But I think overall, not really more positive, but okay.
Not so much. Yeah.
All right.
So we're back to the bendy wings, Grace. Back talking about the bendy wings.
Well, we had a week off. Why would we stop talking about it?
Right, exactly. So it seems that Mercedes and Toto Wolff, and not to single out Mercedes, McLaren isn't happy about this either. They aren't happy about the FIA waiting until the French Grand Prix to require stiffer load tests for the rear wings. And the talk is that they may protest in Baku over this issue.
Sure.
I mean, why not? It's what you do.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, I'm trying to look at this fairly, and I'm thinking, okay, so there's a couple different angles here. So if I look at it and put myself in Toto's shoes, and I'm thinking, or Zach's shoes, right? On one hand, you could understand if they feel that Red Bull, Ferrari, and Alpha are using rear wings that bend more than theirs,
right?
And then waiting for 2 races to correct that issue gives those teams an advantage for those 2 races. And if I'm Toto, that's exactly what I would be arguing.
Correct.
Right? I'd be saying, no. Why are you waiting?
Right.
We've got videos showing those rear wings flexing a lot.
Do you need more evidence? What are you waiting for?
Yeah, it's clearly, by our calculations, a significant advantage. And why are we waiting 2 races, right?
Well, and the thing is that the FIA agrees, right? They're going to change the test that proves whether or not your wing is too bendy or not, because right, technically they're all bendy, but it's that it bends too much, right? So why are we waiting so long to find out if it bends too much?
Right. And so if I'm Toto, that's what I'm arguing. If I'm Zach, that's what I'm arguing.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, if I'm Helmut Marko and Christian Horner and maybe Mattia Binotto and those guys, on the other side of the coin or the argument, if you're Christian and your current wing complies with the current load tests,
right,
then you would feel your wing is compliant. And if you're going to change the regulations, that's fine. We're going to have a little bit of time to fabricate a new wing,
right,
to pass your stricter regulations, right. So because Helmut Marko said in the press that they have a wing right now. Yeah, it may bend under stress, but it's fully compliant. It's went through FIA testing, so it's compliant to the regulations. Now, if you want to change the regulations, we're going to have to make a new wing that holds up to your stiffer regulations. But the fact is, right now we have a compliant wing, and we need a little time to make those changes, right?
Right. Is it compliant?
No. See, if I was Toto,
that's the problem.
I'm not sure I would believe that the current wings are in compliance.
Yeah, right.
But perhaps they are. I don't know. Clearly, the rear wing issue is believed to be a significant advantage, as Lewis implied a few weeks ago.
Well,
but others have suggested that it's not worth. I think Lewis said, it's like 7/10, or don't quote me on that. But Lewis said it was a significant chunk of time. Yeah. And I think some folks on Sky said, no, it's not worth that much. They didn't agree with that.
Okay, but if Lewis is wrong, if Toto's wrong, if Zach Brown is wrong, then why wait, right? I mean, so clearly the FIA thinks it's an issue if they're going to change the rubric that is being used to measure this component, right?
Right.
And it is going to affect all the teams because now everybody's going to have to meet a new standard, right? So it's going to affect everybody. It's of course going to affect the little guys more because it's going to cost them more money to fix this problem.
Right.
So I just think that if they didn't think it was an issue, then the FIA would have said that too, right? They would have come out and said, oh, Toto, right? We hear what you're saying. Thanks for bringing it to our attention. But, Michael looked at it and he said, it's fine.
Yeah.
See you later, right? Or bring us more evidence or whatever. But I just think that they've already said that it's a problem.
Yeah, I saw the video showing the comparison between the Red Bull rear wing and the Mercedes rear wing.
Yeah.
And they had a line across the top.
Yeah.
And then you could see that the Red Bull wing deflected more than Mercedes, right? But that in and of itself isn't indicative of the Red Bull being compliant. It just means that the Mercedes wing doesn't flex as much.
Right. But it could still be within an acceptable range.
It still could be within an acceptable range, or it could be that it definitely passed the load test the FIA have for a rear wing, but maybe, and that's what the FIA seems to say, is that our load test may not be where it should be.
Right. And that's right. So I will also say that, I don't know if people watch Chain Bear's videos, but Chain Bear Stewart does a great job of explaining these kind of things. But why I bring this one up, particularly in his video that talked about the bendy wing, I don't know what's going on behind me.
It's cat wars.
Cat shenanigans going on back there.
Kitty wars. This time it's personal.
That's right. It's the Fast and Furious cat tree going on back there. But that he used, because it's like 75 kilograms versus, like what the weight is. So he uses that weight in Max Verstappen's, which I thought was really useful, kind of like measuring, things in price of Starbucks coffee or something like that, right?
Yeah, right.
So it makes it much more measurable or much more conceptual that the current weight was like 3/4 of a Max Verstappen versus now it'll be like a Max Verstappen and a half.
Yeah,
right. So,
right.
Something like that. But I thought that was a very interesting way because when he said that, I was just like, I don't, and especially because it's weight, I'm like, I don't know what that means at all. So if you want to hear it in Max Verstappen's, the rule explained, check out Chain Bear's video. It's a pretty good it's a very good explanation and a good visual as well.
Yeah.
But I think they've said it's a problem. I think this is coming out and saying we think your wing flexes too much.
Yeah, they may be, and they're saying that our test isn't robust enough. Exactly.
For your aeroelasticity.
That's right. Aeroelasticity. That's right. So if you're Toto, again, if I'm Toto, I'm saying, okay, yeah, so you see it bending, we see it bending, and you're thinking that your test isn't robust enough, then you need to change that post-haste.
Yeah, right.
And the FIA is probably saying, okay, well, yeah, but, it's not like we can just run and say, today it isn't good enough. That's what all the cars were designed to.
Right.
You have to have some leeway to allow the teams that were flexing a little bit more to fabricate, an alternative. At the end of the day, these are the issues that drive the sport and its litigious nature. It just is. If you guys recall the flexi floors that Ferrari had, remember those?
Right.
Or even the original F duct. Remember that? The dual diffuser, as I mentioned earlier, the J dampers at Renault. The sport loves to litigate innovation as to if it complies to the regulations, because all the teams are pushing the envelope, just like Mercedes did with their DAS, their DAS system, which was very innovative.
But what I always love is how it happens. It's basically asking for a friend, right?
Yeah.
So a team will go to the FIA, will go to Michael Massey and go, hey, so we saw this other team's part. Can we put that on our car? Just asking for a friend if that's really legal or not, right?
Ferrari's done that recently.
Right. It's like this circular way of calling out another team without calling out another team. They're just like, hey, we saw that thing over there and we thought that'd be really cool. Can I put that on my car too? No, I can't. Oh, well, then you might want to go look at that car because they have that. I was going to use it.
I think Ferrari was the most recent one to do that.
That's great.
And Red Bull's done it too.
Yeah. Well, and that's all the more, like, as I said before, I love that Christian Horner's getting Christian Hornered, right? Exactly what he does. And now it's being used against him. So live by the 3, die by the 3. I think this is exactly what was always bound to happen.
Yeah.
Toto Wolff's been waiting for this moment.
Oh, yeah. It's get back. It's the big payback.
Yeah, right. This is what he's been waiting for. So I think
down with my girlfriend. That ain't right. Come on, man. It's the big payback.
That's right.
Yes. So anyway, so this weekend, I'm not saying it will, but it could have some controversy. So,
of course.
Yeah. So watch
Formula One.
That's right. So just keep your eye on Mercedes, Toto Wolff, Zach Brown at McLaren. We will see if anyone protests the bendy wings. If they protest the results, I think they would have had to protest Monaco in Monaco.
Monaco, yes, the Monaco.
Grand Prix. So I don't think if the protest was successful that you could go back to Monaco, but they could discount Baku. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
We just get rid of Baku altogether. It's fine.
Wow, right. Why not, man? All right.
Well, you know,
What
I know
else
people
is...
like it. It's fine.
Yeah, I know.
I'm down on Baku.
Why?
I don't know. I never.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a road course.
It is.
I don't know.
It's a very fast road course.
It is. I don't know. It just doesn't bring me joy. I have no other reason than that.
Really?
It's not as bad as Sochi, right? Like, I mean,
or
Sochi,
Valencia.
Right. Those tracks literally don't bring me joy. But, you know, Baku is, I'm never like, ooh. It's not like, you know, we're going to the A1 ring. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting track, right? Like, I don't know. Just never excited about Baku.
Going to the A1 ring. Ooh.
Old school.
Baku. Yes. Oh, boy.
That's
all right. Next up, let's see. This is all about, what? Nikita Mazepin.
I want it now! What's the matter with those twats down there?
So you just made him the new Lance Stroll?
Yeah, pretty much.
Before you go into the story, because we've mentioned Lance Stroll, I just want to say that if you want some awkward humor in your life, watch all the Aston Martin unboxed videos between Vettel and Lance Stroll. Those two literally have zero chemistry. I mean, Vettel and Leclerc didn't really have a chemistry either, because really I just want Vettel and Lewis Hamilton be in a team together because they have great chemistry together, and those unboxed videos would be great. But the two of them together, they try to be funny. There's some humor, but it's a video of awkward joy.
I have not watched that. I have. Speaking of watching things, I have been enjoying, and I'm sure most of you have too. Mercedes has done a great job with their race debrief videos and with James Allison and James Vowles, and they do a great job.
He says so too much, and they tell him to stop saying so.
Probably, yeah.
It's just funny that James Allen, because I do the same thing, because it's a nice transition. And they're like, could you say that again without saying so? He's like, I'm trying.
Yeah. You know, but yeah, it's like anything, you know, when you make a lot of consistent content and you have all these different sort of quirks and verbal pauses and stuff like that, you know, people that listen to it frequently, they get annoyed by it. And it's always difficult to stop doing those, you know.
Right.
It's very difficult.
I'm trying.
Yeah. So they do a great job and have been for some time doing those. But Red Bull's videos too now are really done well. And I like the fact that the big teams at least have said, well, this Netflix thing has been really popular. You know, we have production crews. Right. There's no reason we can't have our own production crews and really capture the weekend and put that content out there. And they're doing a great job. I just happened to get around to watch both the Mercedes race debrief in Monaco and Red Bull's Monaco. And they were good. Yeah, I enjoyed them.
I mean, it's no Ted's Notebook, but... No,
I love Ted's Notebook. That's great fun.
That's always the best.
Yes.
So I think that they are good. But I really just like that now McLaren has forced all the teams to do these like awkward unboxed videos together. So
yeah,
I enjoy the like... I mean, at least like Kimi Räikkönen just like, I don't care, right? Like, but you can see that the Vettel's trying and Lance Stroll's trying, and it's just it's just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
I enjoy. They kind of don't have any chemistry. All right, I'm ready now.
All right.
Everybody get prepared. I gave you a little joy. Now we're gonna have a little less joy. This is not a joyful story.
No, this is a weird story.
It is weird.
Completely caught me off guard. I was looking at just some of the news this past week, and the Guardian has a piece by a guy named Andrew Lawrence over there. Andrew's been writing for a while. I don't know Andrew. I have no idea who he is. But he wrote this really scathing piece about Nikita Mazepin.
Right.
And not only that, but he takes a big swing at America too. And I have no idea why. The first part of the story, it points out just about every single mistake Nikita's made this season, all the things that other drivers have said about him, either in the press or over their team radio. Right. He dredges up the whole rich father buying a ride mantra as if that's something new to F1. Right. I mean, I'm not making excuses for Nikita here, but I mean, at the end of the day, the kid's a rookie, all right?
And Haas.
Yeah, I mean he's at a team with a car that has zero aspirations of doing anything,
Right.
and he's a rookie. And the article points out the radio conversations that he's had with his team. He's like, oh, and he got all fussy with his own team, and had a link to a Twitter account that had the radio. And I listened to the radio, and they were telling him to change something on a steering wheel, and it was, all right, turn this knob to here, and then put it at 10 o'clock, and then go on your menu and change it to 85 or something. And to be honest with you, as a rookie at that speed in the streets of Monaco, I mean, I don't know that I mean, that would be a tall ask, right? And so he was saying, are you guys having a laugh? Because I can't do it. You know, I'm in Monaco and I can't do all that. Right. And so, you know, he got confused and everything. It was but completely benign conversation compared to what Yuki's had with his team, you know, F-bombing his own team and accused him of favoring Pierre. I mean, I haven't heard that from Nikita, you know? So anyway.
Well, and all of this is catered content, right?
Yeah, right.
So FIA is putting out there what they want us to hear, right? So I think that's the other thing too, right? That's part of the narrative development is what content is being put out there.
Right, right. And so, you know, I figured, wow. Okay. I'm not trying, again, I'm not making an excuse for the kid. I don't know him, anything like that. But then the article took a swipe at America at this point. Okay. And he was saying that basically Nikita is giving America its anti-hero or something that America so richly deserves or something. Okay. And I was like, what? Where are we going with this? So then it takes a swipe at America, suggesting that the Haas team represented America, and they even drudged up the tax fraud that Gene was involved in back in 2007 to illuminate how dodgy this team is. Okay. And then I'm going to read you the closing couple paragraphs. Okay. You've got to go a long way out of your way to make these closing points. Okay. Here's what the article said. Quote, so it figured that when an Instagram story surfaced of Mazepin groping a woman's breast after the Haas signing, the driver didn't suffer much beyond having to deliver a public apology. The woman later said they are friends and it had been a joke, although she later unfollowed him on Instagram after posting a Me Too hashtag. In fact, to watch him do his part in F1's We Race as One PSA for inclusion and justice is to witness a deeply entitled white man who could not give less of a damn. He all but confirmed as much earlier this month. After making a point of not joining his fellow drivers who were showing solidarity with the global fight of social justice by kneeling before races, Mazepin buckled for the Spanish Grand Prix, but to commemorate the Soviets who fell during World War II on the 76th anniversary of the Nazi surrender. Quote, my grandparents took part in the war, he told Russian Match TV. Yesterday, I saw the statistics saying that it is a holiday that is even more important to Russians than New Year. End quote. Honoring his country's suffering in the past is commendable, of course, but not bothering to acknowledge other suffering is the worst kind of all lives matter trolling. That aside, maybe, and he's talking about Jolyon Palmer here.
Jojo, the idiot circus.
Yes. He says, that aside, maybe Palmer is onto something. Maybe it's a bit wrong to single out Mazepin as public enemy number one in a sport that owes its global motorsport dominion as much to roguish executives like former boss Bernie Ecclestone as to dubious world leaders like Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman. Besides, in an America where a reality TV show star or TV star who brags about grabbing women can be president, where there are, quote, very fine people on both sides, end quote, where citizens think nothing of their local fuel provider paying a Bitcoin ransom if it means no more hoarding gas and garbage bags, who could call Mazepin a villain? Really? The more he fails upward and coasts on entitlement, the harder it is not to appreciate him for what he truly is, the perfectly timed all-American hero that we so richly deserve, end quote.
It's a little harsh.
That's a little harsh. And I got news for you, Tiger. I didn't put gas in garbage cans.
No, I mean, right. That's always going to be.
I didn't do that.
Well, you also don't live on the East Coast, though, so.
No.
It wasn't your pipeline.
No, wasn't my pipeline. But did you go get garbage cans full of fuel?
No, because I have an electric car.
Well, there you go. So problem solved from your end. I know a lot of people. I was just in Atlanta all last week, and people down there weren't hoarding gasoline.
Well, we had the pipeline's back online again. I think the thing is, so first of all, right, we're a dual fuel family, so we win either way, I guess. But I think that it's too much of a leap, right? Maybe there was a point in here. I do think, like I have to keep an eye on Marzipan or something like that. Like this isn't like, but by blowing it to this extent, now you've made it ludicrous that any point that was made that was valid is now gone because you've blown this much bigger thing. And so then it makes it, none of it seems credible, right?
No.
And so where he starts out with like, hey, right, this maybe isn't what people think, or, maybe we think about Gene Haas a little bit more, maybe think about it. And then it blows in this whole thing. And then you're like, well, this is all crap. So I just think it's a huge leap. I mean, I'm not a Marzipan fan, but I just think that it's a little harsh. It's a little much. Yeah. Of a leap there, buddy.
Well, I think it is too. And I don't think its citizens were that crazy about a company. It's a local fuel provider, paying ransom for that. No, I don't think anybody's happy with that. The private company who owns the pipeline, nor its citizens or anyone, right?
Right.
You have a very clouded view of what it is to be over here, I guess. But I don't. Yeah, all of that is like this long screed of just bitterness that, quite honestly, I don't understand. Maybe he's still upset about, the losing the colony. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know. I think that, it just is.
Yeah. But your point is very succinct. If you were trying to make a point about Mazepin, then make the point and let that point stand on its own. Right. But you threw so much crap on the wall that ain't nobody knows what's sticking and what's not. Right. And now it's not even about Mazepin anymore. You've made it into some big anti-American screed where you're dragging out a 2007 tax issue on Gene Haas and everybody else. It's like, good grief, dude.
But I guess the thing is it's fair to say, hey, did you know about this? Hey, don't forget about this. Hey, yes, this happened in the past. Hey, this is still part of Gene Haas's legacy. That's one thing. It's another to say, and he still should not be trusted, or he still shouldn't be in Formula One, or he still shouldn't be. I mean, I think that's what we were just talking about with Max Mosley, right? He's complicated, and I think to only say he's all good or he's all bad is to rob Max Mosley of the complexity that was him and the complexity that he was as a figure in the sport, let alone the figure outside the sport. And I think it's the same thing. I don't think you can just paint people as good or bad. But that doesn't mean we just never talk about, the tax fraud either. So I think if you wanted to bring that up, that's one thing to say, hey, just a reminder, don't forget this happened. But once you just make it this whole issue, it's too much. And now none of it matters.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I mean, but at some level that applies to Mazepin himself.
Right.
I mean, okay. So at this point, he's kind of like...
That's strange. I wonder what's causing all the accidents.
I get it. Okay. He's a rookie. He's struggling trying to get on top of the car. It's a recalcitrant car. There's a lot of dynamics. It's complicated, as you pointed out. He had the issue on Instagram. His dad bought his ride. There's a lot of dynamics at play here. Right. But I'm not quite sure that warrants pinning him as an all-American hero.
Right.
I don't think any American over here in Formula One is viewing Nikita as an, quote, all-American, number one, he's Russian, and number two, as a hero. No one over here is.
Or even an anti-hero. I don't,
yeah, or even an anti-hero. I
don't know where that, I mean, I mean, he does have issues, right? Like, I mean, I think there's been a lot of issues with him getting off the track in time, getting out of the way.
Yeah.
He's not the only person who's ever suffered from this, and it's hard when your car sucks, and it's never just like, oh, I'll just move over a lane here while you get past me, much faster cars. That's not really how it works. And I think that one comment I do it to Lewis all the time, right? Like, it really drives Lewis's narrative because people just think all he does is complain about his tires. Okay, I think in the course of a 2-hour race, he probably says something to Bono other than just his tires, on top of the fact that that's just a trigger on his part, right?
Right.
It's just a way to throw the other teams off. Right. But even if it was legit, if all they ever play is Lewis complaining to Bono about his tires, that builds his narrative as a complainer.
Right.
All he does is whine and bitch and complain. Oh, that Lewis, that's all he does. Right. It's building a narrative because those are selected quotes that we hear. Somebody decided that's what we get to hear. And so that's going to be what builds his narrative. And that's not fair either.
Yeah. It just seems, I mean, is Nikita over his head? Yeah, maybe.
Probably.
Maybe,
Yeah.
This is not an easy sport.
No. But I would say that perhaps so is Alonso at this point right now, right?
I would say Yuki is. I think anyone that comes in as a rookie is over their head.
Too, right.
Yeah. Look at Dan. Dan's having, real trouble getting on top of that McLaren. He's not over his head. Yeah, Dan and I are like this.
Oh, okay.
He's not over his head as far as being a mature race car driver with awesome racecraft. It's just
what I mean, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of elements at play here. I mean, this piece is just an all-out character assassination.
It is.
Of Nikita and Americans.
I think the thing is that, and again, any legit point you were trying to make is now totally lost.
Yeah.
But I also think that, if you think about us and our day jobs, right? You don't just roll into a new position or a new company and you're just like, I got it. Like I always say, it takes like a year for you to really kind of get your sea legs under who does what and what's all the history of this, because you're just coming into the lives of these people that have been working on these projects for a long time and you're just trying to catch up. And so why wouldn't that happen to a driver, right? It's going to take Ricciardo a while to get up to speed with the car, and the team's going to help him, and it's going to take him a while to get there. Yeah. And again, same thing with Vettel. And then for a rookie, it's a whole new ball of wax that you're dealing with, even though they both came from F2. So it's just going to take them a while to get there. But I just think this is, I don't know. This is, it's sensationalized and perhaps unnecessarily.
Yeah. I don't know. Lighten up, Andrew. Good grief. You toppled any governments lately?
I don't know. Or,
Good grief.
I'm sure there are plenty of things out there that need this. But this just isn't one of them.
It's not one of them.
Right?
I don't know.
Find some place where this is really worth it for you.
Yeah, apropos. Yeah, I don't think this is. All right. Other news. So Dr. Marco Helmet.
That's right.
Made a statement in the press this week that, well, first of all, talking about bendy wings, he says, yeah, I get what Toto's saying about the whole rear wing thing, but, to be completely honest with you, Toto needs to worry more about his front wings than our back wings. Ooh.
How many Max Verstappens can we hang off your front wings, Toto?
How many Max Verstappens? Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was kind of funny, Helmet, kicking back.
Yeah.
Mercedes when there's clear video showing the whole rear Red Bull wing dip.
I just want to go back to Marzipin's, the Marzipin story, is that it's like when we watch Drive to Survive. That's what that story is. We all go, well, yeah, but that's a little that's not actually how it happened, right? That's like a bigger dramatic retelling. That's a little too much poetic license.
Yeah.
That's how that story feels to me. What's in Drive to Survive did happen, but it just gets twisted into this way that's just all right, we watch the sport, man. It's not like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking George Russell saying well, but these are real people to me, so I don't enjoy the show.
It's like a story with Botox in it.
Yeah, it's just like it's just too much. Bring it down a notch, or maybe there's a nugget there I should pay attention to.
Yeah, otherwise you just you pretty much torched your whole story there.
Yeah. All right, I'm ready.
So anyway, he says that the team would be making a decision on who Max's teammate would be in 2022 until summer break.
Of course.
Now, while Checo is doing well on Sundays, it's his Saturday performance that's leaving time on the table.
Right.
And Marco says they have options for 22.
Well, we have a long list of drivers that we fired from your seat that we can pick from,
exactly,
right?
Like, yeah. So there's a lot of folks wondering if Pierre Gasly won't be called up, but I'd be very interested in that move.
Does he have the option to say no?
Well, I guess he would, but I'd be interested to see if, because Pierre struggled in the Red Bull car, and so is Checo.
Right.
And so would Pierre be able to get on top of that car?
Maybe it's not the drivers, Christian Horner.
Well, I think the car is difficult. However, the 2022 car is going to be all new.
Right.
So maybe that is a good time to pull Pierre up.
Or maybe you shouldn't switch drivers every 6 months, and then maybe somebody be able to wrap their head around your difficult car.
Maybe you could keep Checo.
Yeah, I think.
But you run the risk of losing Pierre. And there's still that rumor of Max possibly moving to Merck. And whether that's true or not, you do have to think long-term in F1, and finding the next Max is a priority. I don't know if Pierre's the next Max, but he's doing
then neither, just by age, then I wouldn't, if you're looking for the next Max Verstappen, then I wouldn't bring in Checo or Gasly, right? I think they're both just somebody to hold the seat. It's like George Russell. George Russell is at Williams because Mercedes doesn't have any space for him. So as soon as they do, they'll bring George up. Ocon, whatever, we forgot about him. But I think that's the same thing. Like, I think the only reason to do that would just to be hold the seat, keep the seat warm until our George Russell is ready and we can bring him in.
Right.
Neither of them are long-term just by age.
If I had my shrewd hat on, I think I would roll the dice on Pierre.
I don't know why Pierre would go. Why would you do that?
Well, I think he's still got a contract for a couple of years. Next year, maybe?
I guess that's what I'm saying is that I don't know if Red Bull says, Gasly, we want you in the second seat with Max Verstappen. I don't know if Gasly can say no, right? No. Optics aside, I mean, contractually, if he can say no. Because I think if he can contractually say no, then I'd say no, and then we'd never mention it in public. Now, that may not be Red Bull style, because I could see Red Bull saying, well, we asked Pierre, and he said no, right? Like, I could see them making a deal out of it, but it just doesn't seem to be a car that suited him. But he also knows what that team's about. And maybe it's also, much like Danny Rick, it's a team that didn't suit him. And that McLaren's going to be a team that suits him, even if he's having problems with the car. And much like he was hoping Renault would be a team that would suit him. And so Pierre Gasly already knows, he knows what it's like to work in that office. Does he want to go back to working in that office, or would he rather stay in the office that supports him and he likes working with these people, even if he's going to finish 7th instead of 5th?
Right. Or would he rather go to like Renault or something like that, Well,
I wouldn't go to Renault either, but.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if there is any moving around for next year and what that looks like, and certainly Lewis is in amongst those discussions.
So, because didn't Lewis also say that he wanted his contract signed by summer break?
Yeah, he did.
So yes. I think
and so did Valtteri.
Whatever, Valtteri Bottas. I mean, isn't it clear that nobody at that team cares about you? Anyway, so, my God, Monaco, how sad was that? Oh my goodness. That was brutal. And so I think that but yes, you would like your contract if you want to have both Mercedes drivers. I don't think any other driver would sign until you know that. Yeah. Because if they sign Russell instead of Bottas, well now maybe Red Bull would pick up Bottas and then it wouldn't pick up Gasly. Like, I just can't see everybody's it's like pit stops, right? They're just waiting for the lead guy, Lewis Hamilton, to sign his contract before they pull into pit lane and sign their pit contracts.
Right.
And they're going to try to wait that out. And they may not be able to wait it out. And they may have to be P2, and they may have to be the person that goes into the pits because they can't wait it out any longer.
Right.
But I think that's what everybody's going to try to do. Why?
Yeah, a lot of this is all going to be Lewis and Valtteri are the catalyst.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. In other big news, our friend Elio Castroneves wins the Indy 500. That's awesome. Yay! No, it's not funny.
No, great job.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good job. I was excited for that. I think it was a great performance. It was the quickest Indy 500 in history.
So it was only 6 hours long. Good.
Right.
Okay.
It was interesting. So, the race as a whole was really good. They were like, 70 laps in, and there was only like 15 seconds separating the entire field or something. It was much closer racing and everything than it has been in the past. So help me out with this. Some of you Indy folks that follow it much closer than I do, help me out here. It seemed to me when I was watching it that the fuel mileage was somewhat diminished, and the teams were basically making each stint a full-on sprint, adding to the fact that this is the quickest 500 in history. So was the fuel mileage a factor of regulation changes, or is the fuel mileage, was that in the development of this year's engine or evolution of development, just making it less of an issue at Indy? I couldn't quite figure that out. And admittedly, I haven't been following the series close enough to know what the answer is. But, typically fuel mileage, always plays a factor, but in the past, it's been a real big factor. And this time it almost seems like everyone was just all out sprints, every single stunt they did. So anyway, it's really cool. Elio, having been punted by Penske, won in his Meyershank Racing IndyCar, which is great. Mike Shank, a good friend of Paul Charsley's. And so it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, nicer team. I first met Elio when he was driving for Hogan Racing. So some of you old timers out there that's been following it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So Hogan Racing, Hogan Trucking is based here in St. Louis. And so they were in St. Louis, and I met Elio. Super nice guy, obviously a lot younger, but super nice
Looks
guy.
the same.
Does look the same. And I've interviewed him several times when he was a Penske driver. And he has never changed.
Solid.
He's just as nice and passionate about racing as he ever was. Remember when I was talking to him at Hogan, he was just new to the series. He was so excited, so animated to be in the series. And I remember talking to him a couple years ago when he was at Penske, so excited to be in Indy, loved racing. It just hasn't changed. Just super good guy. Yeah,
absolutely.
Good guy. So kudos to he's a four-timer. Grace.
He's a four-timer. That's right.
Four-timer.
That's right. And he climbed the fence, which was my big thing. Like, was he still going to do it? Again, still a spring chicken on the inside, not so much on the outside. Still did it. Good to see.
Right. Oh, that's good.
That's right.
It's good. All right. Good. Let's see. Instead of awards, we're going to do Albin's Cats. I still, I got to come up with some music for that, Grace.
Yeah.
I got to come up with, some sort of fun. That's right. It's time for Albin's Cats, where we have F1 news or other junk that we can't fit anywhere else. All right.
Yes, that is correct. Weekly observations that don't fit in under anything else.
They don't fit anything else.
Albin's Cats.
All right. Hit me with some Albin's Cats.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to thank to local lister, because when I mentioned this 2 weeks ago that I couldn't remember who it was that originally posted the tweet that spawned this, which was, I may not know who won, the Spanish GP in 1978, but I do know the names of Albon's cats, right?
Right.
And so he sent me the original tweet. So thank you. I'm glad to see that somebody else knows how to use the search function in Twitter, because clearly I did not. And so it originated from a woman named Formula Amelia. So shout out to Formula Amelia for giving birth to the Albon's cat section.
It's all you.
Thanks. I just wanted to, I again, trying to give, credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
So this weekend there wasn't a Formula One race, but there was a MotoGP race at Mugello in Italy. And so first of all, Stefano Domenicali was there, and Toto and Susie Wolff were there. And so living the dream, because that's been something that Flip and I have talked about. Like someday we would do Monaco and then Mugello, because they're close enough. You could just do that like they did. Not a superstar yet, but I'm working on it. So I was hoping that, and I posted this on Twitter, that I hope that they're paying attention, so that when we're on this show and you go, Grace, what about this Formula One thing? And then it's easy. They already understand when I go, well, I don't know. Why doesn't Formula One look to MotoGP, where they already solved this 5 years ago doing X, Y, Z, right? Like maybe they'll pay attention.
Right.
Although, as Flip noted, they're not watching the broadcast, which is what I complain about the most. Like, I don't know why Formula One has graphics here and graphics here and graphics here and graphics here, and none of them make any goddamn sense. Whereas MotoGP, they're so straightforward and simple, and yet Formula One doesn't do any of that. I don't understand. But yeah, so Flip was like, well, they're not watching the broadcast, they're watching the race. I'm like, right. That's what I need them to watch, is the broadcast, so they could go, oh, all you need to do is every time they cross the finish line, just move a little cursor down. And then you get a sense of how far they are from each other. Boy, that's ingenious. I don't know. So they were there. So that was pretty cool.
That's cool.
So then I know we had some discussion 2 weeks ago about one of your favorite topics, which is track limits, and how this has become such a thing.
It is.
Bendy wings is the new track limits, perhaps. So
First
of all, I thought when they were talking about Lando Norris getting a warning for exceeding track limits in Monaco, at first I was like, what? Isn't there an arm code? Like, what is? So I get it, right? And Flip was like, well, actually, down by the harbor. I'm like, okay, you're right. I get it. There are track limits. Yeah, right. Okay, fine. But it does seem ludicrous, the idea of track limits at Monaco.
At Monaco, yeah, right.
Right? Like, okay, I get it. They really do exist. Turn 10, got it. Right, Nouvelle chicane. But I thought that was ridiculous. So then I'm watching the MotoGP race, and there's another track limits controversy.
No, not in MotoGP.
Well, so what in MotoGP, when this happens, they just make them do the longest lap as opposed to bringing them into the pits, right? And they've talked about doing this in Formula One, and I think they do it in some tracks, or they either do it in some series, but I don't think Formula One does it.
No.
But anyway, where there's there's the racing line, and then there's like this other line out here, and so you kind of have to like go out on the further line at certain points, and then that makes your lap 3 seconds longer or whatever, so you do the longest lap. So it happens in MotoGP, but they just don't make the big deal of it as Crofty does, right?
Right.
So last lap, and Miguel Oliveira is in second. Last sector, Miguel goes track limits. They're like, well, he can't do the longest lap. It's the last lap. So they're going to take a position from him. So he goes from being in a KTM to being second position, which is crazy, to being in third. And then they go, just kidding. Joan Mir, who's following him, also exceeded track limits because he was following him off the track. And so nothing's changed. So it was like, oh, Miguel loses his position. Oh, that's sad. Joan Mir gets, promoted to P2. Just kidding. You're all still P2 and P3. Forget we ever brought it up, right? So within the course of like the last sector of a lap, it was like, nope, you're all out. Nope, just kidding. So then this is a longer story because this is life, people. So just bear with me for Albon's cats. This is worth the deep dive. So a couple podcasts ago, I was talking about how Max Verstappen is dating Kelly Piquet, and Kelly Piquet has a child already with Danny Kvyat, and that this is like some sort of weird thing. Although I love the idea of the Verstappens and the Piquets being in-laws. Like that is like the two craziest families in Formula One being in-laws with each other, right? But so it's this thing, and so it was like as if.
But the kid is Daniel Kvyat.
Yes, right.
Why does this happen to Daniel?
I don't know, but it's like as if any one point of that story wasn't weird enough. It gets extra weird, right? And so there was that. So then I'm like watching the podium and I'm like, where is Miguel Oliveira from? I don't recognize that flag, right? Because they do the flags behind. I'm like, God, you think you watch enough of these podiums, you learn all the anthems and I don't recognize that flag, right? So I go to look up where he's from. Portugal's the answer. And I don't know why I didn't recognize the flag, but I did not. But I find out that Miguel Oliveira is a dentist, which was sort of weird. Apparently, he was, while being a MotoGP rider, also studying to be a dentist. And he's engaged to his stepsister. This was like some weird rabbit hole that I wasn't planning on going down. I just wanted to know what country it was from. I didn't recognize the flag. I'm like, whoa, this blows like Verstappen and PK out of the water. Yeah. I couldn't find out if they were married. It was just an old article that said they were engaged, that they had a secret relationship for 11 years and they're engaged and they're out in public now. His stepsister. I mean, they didn't
big emotion.
I mean, they didn't grow up as children together. They grew up as teenagers together, right? It's like the Brady Bunch, right? It would be like, Marcia and Peter getting together, right? They aren't related, but it's still just kind of it was just not what I was expecting. I just wanted to know that he was Portuguese, and this is what I found.
Well, there you go.
And then there's also I just refer to all these videos as unboxed, which is just McLaren calls them, but generally call all these videos unboxed videos. But so there's then a KTM because it's Brad Binder's his teammate, and they did like a whole dentist, themed unboxed together because Miguel Oliveira is a dentist.
Oh, well, so is, who is the guy in F1 for years?
Coles. What was his first name?
By what name are you known?
From Spiker.
Colin Coles.
Colin Coles. He was a dentist, right?
He was a dentist.
Yes, it was just like the most, but what, I just feel like being a dentist is hard and being a MotoGP rider is hard, but you're doing both. He was just doing his studies while,
Yeah, but being both is more harder.
I don't know. I guess it was just, I didn't know, right? Wow. Valentino Rossi's just Valentino Rossi. He doesn't have some other degree.
Man.
And engaged to his stepsister. So,
I thought I had some good Alvin cats, and you roll up going,
what you know about rolling down in the deep?
Wow.
I also, before you continue,
yes.
I recently learned this, and I feel like I should have known this sooner. I actually feel like, the video where they ask Fernando Alonso if he knows that Danny Kvyat is the new Red Bull driver, and he looks at Lewis and he goes, did you know? What? Did you know this? Right? So that's what I felt like when I heard this information. Did you know that Kimi Räikkönen is part owner of Alpha?
No.
I didn't know that. I randomly learned that.
No, I didn't know that.
He owns part of Alpha. I don't remember how much, right? Huh. But it's who are you, Toto Wolff?
Boy, I totally must have missed that.
So I'm just giving you guys the information because we're occasionally insightful that I really 2 weeks ago learned something that apparently has been a thing. That's why there's no discussion about Alpha getting rid of Kimi Räikkönen. That never comes up. He bought his own seat. He doesn't need his rich dad to do it for him.
Well, he's his own Nikita Mazepin then.
Yeah, that's right. He bought it himself. So I just thought...
Oh, this is back in 2018.
That's what I'm saying. It's not like it's recent news. It's really old news.
I just totally missed it or forgot about it.
He just never brings it up. I don't know. I just thought when I found that, I don't even remember how we came across that article. And it was just this is really old. This is 3 years old. I didn't know.
Yeah. Huh.
So now you all know too. Kimi Räikkönen.
How about that? Kimi Räikkönen, part owner of Alpha.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
Now it's your turn.
Okay. For my portion of Alvin's Cats, this is what I'm bringing to the table. Did anyone out there know that Lewis Hamilton skydives?
I didn't know it until I saw him on Instagram. I didn't know this.
It blew me away. He did. Lewis, he it wasn't one of those deals where, and no offense to anyone who's done this, because you couldn't pay me to do it.
Me neither. I ain't doing that.
Ain't doing it. But when people do skydiving, they're tandem with a professional, right?
Right.
And no, That's not
He's
what I'm
on his
talking
own,
about.
right?
No, Lewis does a front flip out of an airplane.
Right.
Goes into free fall with a couple of his buddies there.
Yeah.
And a complete solo skydiving thing. He flips around his front. He flips around his back. Doesn't fly out of control. He's got a couple of instructors with him, to make sure he's okay. But he's doing a fantastic job.
Right.
And it just blew me away. I had no idea.
I didn't know that.
If I did that, I mean, I'd be flying around like a plastic bag in a hurricane and
full of gas, right?
Full of gas, yeah, because it's American, and I'm comfortable with that apparently.
Right.
And tax fraud too, of course.
Yes.
So yeah, so it was incredible. So the Daily Mail had a little piece on there and said that Lewis had made the comment, maybe on a social media, but he'd been kind of training for skydiving and stuff for the last 2 years.
Really?
And it shows. I mean, he did a fantastic job.
I feel like, what did you do during the pandemic? Oh, I learned how to make sourdough bread. What did you do? Oh, I learned how to jump out of a plane by myself. Never mind.
Okay.
I didn't learn how to make sourdough bread, by the way, but that seemed to be the pandemic thing to do. But I don't know. That was crazy.
I can't drive a car as fast as Lewis. I can't wear fashion as good as Lewis. I can't jump out of an airplane as good as Lewis.
None of us can do anything as good as Lewis. I mean,
I can. I kick his ass and playing guitar. Sorry.
Okay. Well, that's true. I mean,
that's the one thing I got on Lewis.
You're right. That's fair.
it.
I'll give you that.
Yes.
That's right.
So there you go.
All right.
But yeah, I'm also kind of curious about how these teams, it used to be these teams wouldn't let drivers do anything extreme or any of that stuff.
Like tennis accident? Yes.
Yes, like tennis accident or rally. And I'm looking at you at Bobby K.
Right.
Yeah. And so I can only imagine, though, that the team has some massive insurance policies on him, too.
Yeah, I don't know. That was my first thought, too. I'm like, I can't believe that Mercedes lets him do
It's got to have like key life policies in there for Lewis, I would imagine. So.
Yeah, because again, I don't know how many hours you need to go solo, but
no, a few, right. So. All right, let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
Andrew Page asks, so what do you think? I recently read that Toto has, quote, out of the goodness of his heart.
Oh, this is like bless your heart. This is gonna be good.
I know. Offered Roman Grosjean, insert prodigious talent. Well, Andrew, you beat me to the punch. Roman Grosjean, I have that here, Andrew.
A prodigious talent.
Yes, he is a prodigious talent. A farewell test drive in a real car at the French Grand Prix, as he felt it was not a deserving way to end his F1 career with the dreadful accident at Bahrain. Well, do we take this at face value and look at it as a lovely thing to do, or is this a shrewd businessman at work? Your thoughts. P.S. It would be very interesting to be able to compare his times like for like with previous drivers at the same car.
Okay. My answer is it's both.
And I know that out of the kindness of his heart, but what's the shrewd part?
I just think that it's just like putting George Russell in place for Lewis, right?
That's publicity.
Right. And he may be good, right?
He might be.
So this is why wouldn't you take advantage of a little free ride time to see maybe Roman Grosjean, he's been at Haas. Haas is a dog. Because I think that's the thing. For as much as Haas as a team has to be down on Magnussen and Grosjean because they're gone. And so you have to be like, those guys were a bunch of dirt bags and they couldn't do anything, right? You kind of have to have that as because otherwise you'd have to keep them. But we all kind of see now like, oh, well, now you have Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin, and they're not doing great either. So maybe, just maybe, it wasn't Grosjean and Magnussen that sucked, right?
Yeah, maybe.
So I think it's more the first, right? I think it is like, this is a nice idea. This is good PR. Who wouldn't do this if you had this opportunity, right? Absolutely. But he's always thinking he's Toto Wolff. And it is an opportunity to say, well, and I think, after his win at that Indy race, like, he still got something in there and he still wants to race. So
he does.
I don't think this means you put him in Formula One, but maybe this is how you help put him somewhere else. Or you get him.
Maybe.
I think you're always looking. I think
it would be a little weird, though, if, later this year, Valtteri's trying to call Toto and there's no answer.
Hello, this is United States calling up.
You'd be like, hello?
Yeah, like
sorry, we just signed Roman.
I think have fun in the sauna, right? Like I think that it's kind of like looking for a job. In my opinion, I'm never looking, but I'm never not looking, because you never know when some great opportunity may come up, that if you only look for jobs when you're looking for jobs, you just may not find something that's a great fit. And I've taken jobs in the past where it's like, I don't hate my current job, but this opportunity is too good to pass up. That's what I think the shrewd business part is. You're always looking. You're never not looking.
Right.
So, because if you're only looking when you're looking, you're never going to find anybody.
I think it's a great move, because I agree with Toto. I think it was sort of
there's no harm in that, right?
Anticlimactic end to his F1 career, having been injured and all that stuff. And so giving him an opportunity to run in a Mercedes, and I think it's great. It's a great move by Toto, and I think Toto's a class act, and he's a good guy in that sense. And I think he if he could help Roman sort of bookend his Formula One career, it's a great move. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it gets you a little good face time, and you never know. You never know when that comes up. Again, I think that's what we all face in our careers too. You never know when, like, some person that you said something nice to at a conference is like, I remember you, Todd. You helped me out in this place, and you're just like, oh, well, look at that rolled around, right? I've had that.
And Toto, it's like, for God's sakes, be nice, because you don't want Andrew Lawrence writing about you over at the Guardian.
Yeah, for sure not. So, that's why I think it's both. I think that, of course, but why wouldn't you? Anybody that had this opportunity, I don't think nobody. The only person who ever talked bad. Nobody talked bad about Roman Grosjean except for his own team principal. So
right.
Gunther. I mean, that was the worst part of Drive to Survive. Like, could they make Gunther Steiner look any worse? Was he's like literally taking the mick out of him after he just caught on fire? You can't help yourself, can you?
I know. It's like,
You can't just say, holy shit, dude, you almost died, and I'm glad you're not dead. That's literally what you have to say, and he still can't. He can't help himself but take the piss out of Roman Grosjean at literally the worst opportunity possible, and the cameras are right there. So,
and Roman's like,
help, I'm being repressed.
That's terrible.
It was all of that was terrible. So I think it'll be good, and I think that Roman Grosjean should continue to drive for as long as he can, because I think he still has talent, and he still's pushing him, and right on. Keep doing it.
There you go. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think about the news. Let us know what you think about the news. You can go over to theparkferme.com, share your opinion. Just do it with decorum and civility. No personal attacks. Also, if you like the podcast, go over and give us a little love on iTunes, and give us a good rating over there. I'd appreciate it. Thank you to all of you on Patreon who support us, because we could not, and quite honestly would not, do this podcast if it was not for you. So if you don't support us on Patreon, you would like to, you can go to theparkferme.com. On the right-hand side, it says support us. Click on that. You can. If you don't want to support us, find a person who does and pat them on the back, because they're the only reason this podcast gets made. So thank you so much for that. Also, we will be back to review the Baku Grand Prix, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku. It's easy for me to say as American,
That's right.
With all the tax fraud and gas and, grabbing women and all that. So anyway. Yeah. So anyway, be sure to tune in next week when I find Paul, and I'll get to finally ask Simon's question, and we'll review the Baku GP. So until that time, next week, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you in a couple weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.